When Donald Trump conducted a heist-style military operation in Venezuela, snatching Maduro from his bed and taking him to the US, I genuinely wondered, can he even do that? So I looked it up. The answer is no, at least not under international law. But domestically, it's more complicated. Under US law, a president can authorize limited military operations without congressional approval, as long as it doesn't escalate into a full-blown war. And yes, I deliberately call it a heist because it's not about conquest. It's about extracting something valuable with minimal exposure. Remove a hostile gatekeeper, unlock frozen or sanctioned assets, and walk away. Some international analysts argue that this kind of operations opens the floodgates, where powerful states use force against other states' leaders under broad or dubious pretexts. China, for example, can do the same in Taiwan. But this analysis has a major flaw. If China wants to act in Taiwan, it won't stop to check whether it violates international rules. China has previously ignored international legal rulings and acted unilaterally when it wants, like in the South China Sea arbitration. Russia tried a similar legal fiction by calling its invasion of Ukraine a special military operation, not a war. But everyone knows it was a full-scale war, justified by Moscow as a response to what it thought were direct threats to its national security. Violating international law is not the exception, it's common practice. The US did a similar kidnapping with the capture of Panama's military ruler, Manuel Noriega. What these analysts miss is that a different and far more dangerous set of floodgates has been opened, one that has nothing to do with military raids. It's the pursuit of nuclear weapons. Because countries without nukes become vulnerable to powerful states' military pressure, while countries with nukes are comparatively immune. Countries with nukes, even small ones like North Korea, are effectively immune to direct US military action. Despite decades of provocations and missile tests, the US has not attempted a major military strike on North Korea. Another example is when Libya gave up its nuclear weapons capability. The regime was later overthrown, and that sequence has become a widely discussed example in debates about whether nuclear disarmament truly enhances regime security. Now, Trump threatened Venezuela, then Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, and Greenland is likely the US's next target, as Trump has made clear it is vital to US national security, by purchase if possible, by force if necessary. This suggests the US is in a serious conquering mode, and smaller countries that cannot defend themselves against US threats may see nuclear weapons as their best option. That raises an uncomfortable question. Is having nuclear weapons the only guaranteed way to keep the US from showing up at your doorstep? I deliberately leave Pakistan out of this, because it's a special case. Last year, India carried out a military operation against Pakistan, a nuclear-armed state, and got away with it. That shouldn't have been possible if Pakistan's nukes truly functioned as an independent deterrent. Now, in this part, I don't have any official source, but actions under the microscope reveal the pattern. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are not fully Pakistan's. They exist under strict US oversight. And I am not saying Pakistan's nukes are literally US-owned, or that there is a signed treaty or technical kill switch. That is, Pakistan's nuclear weapons function inside an external strategic constraint imposed by the United States, such that their use is politically forbidden, even if technically possible. Because of that, Pakistan's nukes do not operate as a sovereign, independent deterrent in the same way that Indian, Chinese, or Russian nukes do. A nuclear state should be immune from direct conventional strikes. Yet India struck a nuclear-armed Pakistan, and did so knowingly. Did so without extraordinary escalation control measures. And did so repeatedly over recent years, like in 2016, 2019, and 2025, while Pakistan absorbed it and responded with its "bleed India with 1,000 cuts" policy, which made India believe Pakistan's nuclear threat is not credible in practice. Pakistan's own doctrine claims low nuclear thresholds. They can use battlefield nukes. Even that doctrine didn't activate during Sindoor. Then one of two things is true. The doctrine is a bluff, or the doctrine is externally constrained. Washington hates that Pakistan has nukes, but it tolerates them under conditions: keep them, never use them. There's no formal treaty spelling this out. But the pattern is obvious. Look at Iran. When the US believed Iran had crossed into weapons-grade uranium territory, its facilities were bombed. Nothing remotely similar has ever happened to Pakistan. The reason goes back to history. India's 1974 peaceful nuclear explosion triggered tighter non-proliferation thinking in Washington. When India conducted full weapons tests in 1998, Pakistan followed almost immediately. Pakistan was allowed to keep its arsenal largely to keep India in check, to ensure India's nuclear umbrella stayed focused on its immediate neighborhood and didn't expand westward. If non-proliferation was the real red line, Pakistan should have been target number one, given its weak democratic institutions, the dominance of its military over civilian authority, and the long-standing presence of extremist groups that raise global fears of nuclear theft or loss of control. They serve to function for Washington. India containment without India expansion. From the US perspective, that balance was convenient. Many believe North Korea's nukes are controlled by China. That's precisely what the US fears most, because it can't control China, and it can't control North Korea either. Sanctions didn't stop Pyongyang from building bombs and missiles. If anything, they gave it the one thing that guarantees survival: immunity from invasion. Only sovereign, uncontested nuclear deterrence works. The no-first-use policies of India and China are largely a gimmick. Like all nuclear states, both operate on a simple truth: if survival is at stake, doctrine bends. NFU holds only because neither faces easy existential defeat, not because the button is disabled. In a real escalation, when diplomacy fails and help doesn't come, nukes are the final guarantee. India and China are fully aware of this, and so is the rest of the world. That's why I say this plainly: acquiring nuclear weapons was the best strategic decision India ever made.